Hi students, this is your first video lecture for Module 4 where we'll be covering the idea of what homologous chromosomes are, and that will lead us into meiosis. I will have another video lecture after this that goes more into the details of meiosis. This content can be covered in Chapter 10, Section 1 in your textbook. So this picture that I have here is called a karyotype. And so a karyotype is actually something that lab technicians do. They will get one of your body cells and they'll get it. You've learned about mitosis now. They'll get it in like prophase or metaphase of mitosis where the chromosomes are visible, right? So they're not in the form of chromatin, they're in the form of condensed chromosomes. And they will take a image of them with a microscope and they'll stain the chromosomes and then they will organize them. Okay, so this picture of them, notice that they're organized into pairs and they're going from largest, right, kind of to smallest. This isn't how they're normally found in your cells, but people who make karyotypes will get the cell at a stage where they can see the chromosomes and then they'll cut them and they'll organize them. And the way that they've organized them here in pairs shows you that chromosomes in our bodies, we actually have 46 in every cell except our gametes, which we'll get into later. So we have, if you were to count these, you would have 46 of them, right? So you'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way to 46. Or another way you could say is that you'd have 23 pairs, right? 46 different chromosomes are 23 pairs. And if you notice, the pairs of chromosomes are of the same length, of the same size, and when they stain them, they form the same patterns. And the reason for that is because each chromosome in a pair contains the same types of genes. So remember, chromosomes are condensed DNA, and sections of DNA that code for a protein are referred to as genes. So these pairs of chromosomes contain the same genes. So we refer to them as homologous pairs because homo means same. So homologous chromosomes or homologous pairs of chromosomes are chromosomes that are the same. They contain the same gene. Okay, so that's number one. But the genes can be in different forms, all right? So for example, I'm giving you an example here. Chromosome pair number 1, and this is just me making up this example, okay? You could say that this staining here, this region, contains the gene for the eye pigment color. And so these are homologous chromosomes because they both contain the same gene, eye pigment, but that gene can be in different forms. So for example, if you're looking at this pair, the one on your left has the brown, the one on your right has the blue. So those are both the same gene, the gene for eye pigment, but they're in different forms. So these two are homologous chromosomes. They're of the same size, the same length, the same pattern, and they contain the same genes, but those genes can be in different forms. Another example, chromosome pair number 5. Maybe this gene contains a gene that will make your cheek get a dimple, but this gene is no dimple, okay? So same idea. You inherited half or one of each homologous pair from your mother and one of each homologous pair from your father. And when you, as a mature adult, produce gametes, egg or sperm, those egg and sperm will have one of each pair, and that will be potentially passed on to your offspring. Okay, and we'll talk more about that later. Here, I just want to remind you that here in this picture that I'm highlighting, this is a homologous pair of chromosomes. Because these images, this is kind of difficult to follow, so try to focus here. Because these images, right, were taken when the chromosomes were visible, right? They were actually taken during the mitotic phase of the cell cycle. And that is after DNA duplication. So the chromosomes are actually containing sister chromatids in them. Because remember, mitosis that we learned last module separates the sister chromatids because each sister chromatid is the exact same thing versus homologous chromosomes have the same genes, but they're not exactly the same DNA. They can be in different forms. But sister chromatids are just copied so that when the cell divides, they separate. And each cell has the exact same DNA. Before we move on, the other point I want to make is that the 23rd pair here that I'm circling are the sex chromosomes. If you're a female, biological female, you would have the XX chromosome. Biological males have the XY. Notice that the Y chromosome is much smaller than the X chromosomes. So when you have an X and Y, they're technically not homologous because there's some genes on the X that won't have the corresponding gene on the Y because physically the Y chromosome is much smaller. That'll become important later in this module when we talk about genetics. All right, so just to kind of summarize and add a few more details, humans have 23 different types or unique pairs of chromosomes, right? In their body cells. We refer to body cells as being diploid 2N, because there are 2 chromosomes in every pair or of every type. Okay, so body cells are diploid. We're going to learn that sex cells, egg and sperm, don't have 2 chromosomes of every type. They only have 1. All right, so we would say the sex cells are haploid. Di means 2, right? That's why diploid. They have 2 chromosomes of each type, or they have pairs of chromosomes. Chromosomes of the same type, right, are referred to as homologous chromosomes. They're homologs. Homo means same. They are of the same length. Their centromeres are in the same place, positioned along the chromosome. One came from the father. We refer to that as the paternal homolog. The other from the mother, the maternal homolog. Next video, we're going to focus on meiosis. And meiosis is the type of cell division that makes gametes, egg or sperm. And in meiosis, we go from a diploid cell that has pairs of chromosomes to haploid cells that only has 1 of each type of chromosome. Because each gamete, whether it be an egg or a sperm, only has 1 of the homologous chromosomes of each pair, because then fertilization, right, when the egg and sperm join, they reconstruct the pairs. And we'll talk about that during the next video lecture.